Oh, you got me again. I wasn't expecting anybody else to be here, but you know what? I'm glad you are. We got a lot to talk about. On this installment of PsychRad, we'll be talking a little bit about anxiety and my own personal experience with it. That is, my anxiety, not
high anxiety.
Anxiety and depression are called internalizing disorders because they manifest from within the self rather than being a result of an outside or external causation. However, depression is categorized as a mood disorder because it is a pattern of illness due to an abnormal mood, whereas anxiety disorders are characterized by anxiety and by behavior calculated to ward it off. But anxiety is a more common occurring disorder than depression and is in fact a symptom of almost all mental health disorders. While both anxiety and depression can cause clinically significant impairments in normal functioning, unlike depression, anxiety seems to have a redeeming purpose in that it can help enhance performance during the execution of certain tasks, such as taking college exams. Depression, on the other hand, does not seem to serve any productive function. There are several comparisons and contrasts that can be identified between anxiety and depression, but their relationship to one another seems more interesting and therapeutically relevant. Anxiety has actually been labeled as a subtype of depression. In fact, over half of the people who suffer from depression also experience an anxiety disorder. Childhood anxiety can also be a predictor for depression in adulthood. Therefore, therapists treating clients with anxiety disorders such as post-traumatic stress disorder, panic attacks, or other should also look for and address any symptoms of depression. Based on my own experience with anxiety and depression, I can say without any uncertainty that they can coexist and even perpetuate one another in a twisted dance of dysfunction. It is hard to say which one commonly precedes the other, but in my case it seemed to be anxiety. A little over a year before I finished school, I had begun to grow increasingly anxious about my future career as a therapist due to certain self-doubts in regards to my ability to be an effective force in the field. Of course, there were other stressors that may have contributed to my anxiousness, but I believe it was fear of future failure that was the main instigator. Not to mention, I was consuming a lot of energy drinks at the time, which did help me to be more alert in class and help me to be a much more prolific writer, but caffeine can definitely be a contributor to anxiousness, so I ditched the energy drinks and became a non-caffeinated teetotaler. My anxiousness gradually became worse and began to cause panic attacks in which I thought I was having a heart attack, stroke, or another unidentified yet equally ominous illness. Even though I eventually realized that what I was experiencing was panic attacks and that feeling I was dying was just a symptom of the attacks, it took some time to convince myself that I was probably not dying and that anxiety and depression were to blame for the feelings of dread and impending doom I was experiencing. There was also a certain degree of unwarranted shame that I experienced because I mistakenly saw the anxiety as a sign of weakness, and was accompanied by a constant internal self-deprecating dialogue which collectively contributed to the comorbidity of depression and anxiety. I even felt a little apprehensive about sharing my experiences with anxiety and depression here on PsychRad, but then I thought, who better to provide information about these issues than someone who has experienced them firsthand? And hopefully by sharing my experience, I can help others going through the same thing, even if it is merely by helping people to identify their own anxiety and depression. Now I'll be taking a much deeper dive into anxiety, its causations, and possible treatments in future installments of PsychRad, so stay tuned for that. I played this too long.